Meanwhile, at the lab. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the Undaunted Labs where the future is being made today. We have made excellent progress, sir, and will be more than happy to show off some of our discoveries, Dr. Samuel says as Admiral Cistern walks into the laboratory. The military man pauses, considers, then simply turns to the scientist with a mildly baffled look on his face. I know a quote when I hear it, but I don't know where it's from, he says, and the doctor waves him off. I'm sure it will come to you in time, sir. Now then, if you'll follow me, we have some excellent advances to show you and several interesting observations that explain a great deal about the technological and psychological development of the galaxy as a whole, Dr. Samuel assures him. This way, please. Admiral Cistern follows the man past the blast shielding to a table with several machine components dismantled and labeled in front of him, with a large device with similar labels all over it. It vaguely resembles a cube with the front and back removed. I see you've reverse-engineered the technology in this piece. Yes, indeed, sir. This weapon, known as the Endless Barrage or the CS-92, one of 10 illegal weapons of the CS series after the first 50 each weapon designation, grows more and more restricted, the final 10 being outright illegal to own. But not to sell? Admiral Cistern asks. Loopholes, sir. The weapons are actually in a minimum of 2 components and not actually made until they're slotted together. Making the components is perfectly legal. Selling the components is perfectly legal. Slotting them together is where you break the law. Incidentally, my dismantling of the weapon has rendered it legal to possess. Half the legal system in the galaxy is loopholes, if not 2/3. Admiral Cistern notes with a sigh. Yep, anyways, what we've learned from this is the shrinking technology. Unfortunately, it's not like in movies and TV shows. Shrinking things is just the first part. Keeping it shrunk afterwards is the tricky part, Samuel explains as he takes a pen out of his breast pocket. Observe. He places pen in the large device. He then opens a small cover and flips a toggle. The device audibly powers up and begins to hum. The pen seems to vanish from sight, and Admiral Cistern squints a little to see a tiny little scratch in the machine. The machine ceases humming and powers down. Moments later, the pen visibly grows from the scratch. Dr. Samuel picks it up and places it back in his pocket. As you can see, it requires constant application of the shrinking field to keep a shrunken object shrunk. Thankfully, we have a great deal of understanding about the process now. Amusingly, the black box components of this weapon are in the firing mechanism and the ammunition production rather than the shrinking technology. Things we have little, if any, issue with ourselves, Samuel explains. So this prototype can be of use? Admiral Cistern asks. We need a bit more refinement of the techniques and a bit more experimentation with the equipment before we produce our own endless barrages, but we can already apply its technology to our existing shipboard armaments and save enormously on cargo space for both standard supplies and ammunition. This sample here is a crude prototype mock-up, the first attempt, and it's yet to fail on us. You mentioned societal impacts. Yes, sir, Dr. Samuel notes. Ordinarily, there'd be another doctor here, but they seem to have elected me spokesman. The scientist shrugs with a rueful smile. Anyways, the societal implications of loading chamber, feeding mechanism, and chemical composition to the warheads, all being the black box part of the technology, speaks to a technological skip. To summarize, thanks to Axiom, they went from throwing rocks to powered flight to hyperdrives. They have very few, if any, of the technologies that we see as a step from one area to another. Their idea of kinetic ammunition is a rail gun or a magnetic launcher. Not gunpowder. As such, a lot of advances that we consider basic are relatively unknown. Relatively. These technological midway points are not in any way too complicated for them to figure out. It's just that they never needed to. So, if we see something like a hot air balloon, or in this case rocket-propelled grenades, then we can be assured that it's a fairly unusual piece in the galaxy at large. This one in particular uses a very similar explosive to our anti-armor grenades, a little less effective, in fact, but the sheer numbers it can bring to bear gives it all the firepower it needs. So what you're saying is that we can fully load these endless barrages? Yes, which is actually quite the boon, Lee. The reason why there's not a larger attempt to suppress these weapons is that the ammunition cartridges are sold at exorbitant prices. If we can simply reload them ourselves, then we can easily maintain numerous endless barrages, normally a very cost-prohibitive endeavor. Reloads of the endless barrage cost more than buying a new one. Quite the scam, Admiral Cistern admits before Dr. Samuel leads him to another table. An effective one too, sir. Bringing an endless barrage to battle is galactic shorthand for of you and your entire army despite, or perhaps justifying the cost of the weapon is its extreme capability. Technician Pike did mention that there was a flurry of excellent manners when he made his possession of the weapon known. I believe it, sir. Still, we've gotten ourselves a great number of tricks to allow for enormous force multipliers. We have a few different directions we can take our current advancements in, and I was thinking about upgrading the main weapon batteries of the Dauntless. We were also thinking about upgrading our storage and factory settings. The expanded space and shrinking technology used in conjunction should allow us an enormous amount of leeway and breathing room inside the ship's hull for manufacturing purposes. We're also looking into battlefield uses of this technology. Easily transported cover and defensive positions complete with turrets and medical stations would be an absolute game-changer on the battlefield. Dr. Samuel explains, and Admiral Cistern nods as he churns things over in his mind. I see, he says and considers. The good doctor watches for a few moments before the man's eyes open with a grin. Dr. Samuel, I think it's time we begin specializing our fleet. The Dauntless is an excellent mobile base and transport. Its communication hubs and enormously powerful hull give it a wonderful position as the armored heart of a fleet. However, I will not condone sacrificing its ability to enter and exit cruel space. Therefore, I want you and your teams to design support ships that can be built within the Dauntless facilities. I want the current focus to be upon additional support vehicles. Begin with salvage and mining vehicles, construction vehicles, repair vehicles, survey vehicles, and research vehicles. After that, I want to see designs of strike craft, light escorts, heavy armor, bombardment, and long-range tactical vessels. By the time this team is finished, the information and blueprints alone will allow a singular Dauntless-class ship to slowly produce combat-effective fleets the moment it leaves cruel space. After writing it all down, Dr. Samuel actually considers things for a moment before smiling. A bit of good news already is that many of the tools and equipment required for salvage, repair, and construction have a great deal of overlap. Especially between repair and construction, what you need to fix a ship can turn one out with sufficient resources. Survey and research have a great deal of overlap as well. Powerful scanners and observational tools are useful in a variety of fields. And I'll assume that reducing what we're producing in the vessel to 3 types of ship will be of great use. Yes, but it... Oh, I need to write this down! FTL-capable mobile scaffolding, ships dedicated to hydroponics and luxury. If we design this right, then a Dauntless might be more than the heart of a fleet. It would be the heart of a soaring nation-state with the firepower, logistics, and technical capacity to defend itself in any scenario. Forget colonizing worlds, we'll take all the space between! Dr. Samuel rants with clear glee in his voice and receives a 2-fingered swat in the head. Curb the enthusiasm, Doctor. Mania brings us messes, not results, Admiral Cistern notes. Furthermore, I just thought of a 4th type of vessel that Dauntless-class ships will have to turn out. Sir? Dr. Samuel asks. Some form of tug. I want all life pods on all ship designs to be null-resistant if not outright immune. I want tugs that can operate in null to rescue these pods should the worst happen. Steel and metals can be reforged. A veteran is rather harder to replace, Admiral Cistern says, and Dr. Samuel just smiles. Sir, the sheer tonnage that all but the survey and science vessels will have to move in performing their normal duties means they can double as tugs. However, making them cruel space-friendly as well is an interesting challenge, Dr. Samuel remarks in thought. See to it, Doctor. Now I'm certain we've both given each other an enormous amount of food for thought, so I'll leave you to it. I want your early designs and estimates on my desk in a week. A week! Dr. Samuel exclaims. You have an entire galaxy's design structure as well as our own to draw from, a dedicated team and several doctorates. A week is overly generous for crude prototype designs. Admiral Cistern states calmly, and Dr. Samuel considers it, and then has the decency to look somewhat embarrassed at his earlier outburst. Yes, sir. We'll have some of the basics on your desk soon enough. Good man. Incidentally, if you have a list of tools or resources you find yourself lacking, do feel free to inform me. Well-funded scientists are effective scientists. Thank you, sir. Thank me with results, Doctor. Good day, Admiral Cistern says before turning to leave. This is good. This is very good. He had waited a long while to make an order such as this, and the fact that the only thing that even mildly surprised Dr. Samuel was a time frame meant it was not only possible, but almost easily so. Space stations, self-maintaining fleets, entire worlds. Humanity would build it all. He reaches his office and quickly begins to go through the couple of small reports that have cropped up during his visit. He glances around and then out to his overview of the main bridge. The minimal crew requirement is there and working. Coffees can be seen and the general buzz of energy is moving about. Less than 10 years before this site is common. In all likelihood, another Dauntless-class ship has already been commissioned and is a fair percentage completed. How many will be produced, I wonder? Tens? Hundreds? Thousands? Millions? He returns to his desk and finds the comm button flashing. Sir, Miss Downshift would like to speak with you. Thank you. I'll be down to see her shortly, he says, standing right back up again. His crisp stride and quick visit to the anti-gravity hallway brings him to her personal quarters fairly quickly. Miss Downshift? You wish to speak? He asks after being led into her room. She's waiting for him with her right hand held over the central computing core in her chest. I, Cotty Downshift, in full command of my mind and body, of my own free will and under no coercion, do so swear to uphold the rights and responsibilities of the Undaunted. To this I shall serve to the best of my abilities. My method of serving shall be dictated by my lawfully acquired rank and status among the undaunted military in all of its branches, be it general service, command, research and development, infrastructure, or the Earth Foreign Legion. For a period possibly greater to but no less than 5 standard galactic years will I serve to the fullness of my capacity and of my own free will, to accept and dispense lawful commands as appropriate and to refuse unlawful commands as appropriate. I will uphold the laws of the Undaunted and keep its secrets and trust to the best of my abilities and insights. Should I prove myself a danger to my fellow soldiers, incapable of fulfilling the roles entrusted to me, or in some other manner unfit for duty, my rank and standing may be suspended or stripped from me entirely for the betterment of the Undaunted and myself. This I have sworn fully aware of the implications and interpretations of this oath, and do so without reservation or doubt. I am undaunted. She vows to the surprised admiral who regards the oath with first risen eyebrows, then a confident smile as he moves to stand at ease. I see. Allow me to be the first to welcome you to our nation, madam. It will take some time to process this, but not much. Though, if I may ask, he says smoothly. One of the robot woman's ears tilts somewhat in curiosity. What prompted this decision? I am not Fosa. She begins before her air vents circulate to simulate a sigh. The race I remember living as, what I remember being for most of my life. I'm blatantly not that because it wasn't my life. Oh, sure, I'm the same general shape and have many of the same urges and the memories of one. I even have a synthetic womb. I can do anything a Fosa can. But I'm not. Legally speaking, I was born a luxury air car. It was you. It was your people that gave me a proper name. I haven't had a home till I came to be here. So you wish to make it official. More than official. I want it to be true. I want to be an Undaunted. Welcome aboard. We're still rather new to this, so we'll find an appropriate ceremony to celebrate your joining us. Harriet the Spy. The younger Clatterhooves has long been suspected to be a member of the Umbral organization and that strange figure that killed Miss Gloring and vanished in a blast of smoke. The organization is eating itself alive ever since those humans fought back. Lavender mutters to herself as she ties some purple yarn around one peg and up to another. But what branch does this shadow figure belong to? If he even belongs to the Umbral. We saw him move against one branch of the Umbral and vanish 2 people tied to another. Harriet, in her Tarita persona, notes as she brings up a single picture of Herbert stuck in mid-air as the Nagasa Miss Gloring tries to hold him back. Thankfully, they didn't have any pictures of him only partially disguised. He'd moved fast to dress up again afterwards, and that was making her life a lot easier in return. I can't believe that someone's using a man as an assassin. I mean, it's a man. They're supposed to bring life into the galaxy, not take it away, Genshina mutters, as she looks over her own copy of the picture. He could be any number of bipedal races, especially if he's using axiom pockets to hide other body parts. The only hint we have is that he has that human weapon, but that could easily be a frame job. They're not hard to make. They're very easy to use and very powerful, especially at closer ranges. Lavender mopes as she brings up a shrunken blueprint of a handgun. Once again, Harriet is in awe at just how close and how far she can miss the mark at the same time. It's actually fairly impressive how she just dismissed her best piece of evidence as a frame job. Maybe we need to think in different angles. It's like docking with a transport hub. You have to match its velocity just so, or you're just making a mess. Harriet offers a bit of folksy space trucker wisdom and visibly considers. What about the location? The business, or heck, even the building or the entire spire? Is there anything funny about them? That's a very good question. You can look into that while I start digging into possible sources for this gun. There has to be some hint in its construction. The chemical compounds used in the chemical propellant should do it. They should be fairly exotic. Lavender remarks, going right down the wrong trail again. Harriet makes a point of not telling her about rifling and patterns in the bullets. Still, with everyone properly distracted as Genshina begins trying to figure out what BMO races have sensitive eyes to need a visor alongside martial traditions, Harriet can listen in and burn time as she researches the history of the arcade, the building it's in, and the spire it's on. She prints out a few sheets of food poisoning incidents, one of which fatal. She then follows it up with the story of how the previous owner of the building had fallen into bad debts due to gambling addictions and had been forced to sell to a bunch of teens that had pooled their cash together. The spire, of course, has a population just shy of 1 billion, so there are enough missing person reports, ongoing murder cases, cold cases of all kinds, reported gangs, and terrible rumors to print out a stack of paper a foot high as she prints only every 10th story. She then goes into sorting it all. Things she thinks are tied to the conspiracy, things she's not sure about, and things she's sure aren't involved. So she starts putting together a bit of a story, perhaps a tale of revenge and hatred stemming from the gambling addict to several disappearances, and maybe into the food poisoning as well. Maybe? No. I think I'm edging into the wrong lanes here, Harriet mutters, and she puts all the research aside and begins digging into the history of the spire again. Hey! This is neat, but it's not what we're looking for, one of the Charbies notes as she looks over the little scandal that Harriet pulled out of random articles. That's why I'm looking again. I thought it might lead to gang activity. Maybe the Umbral organization has some kind of stake in that gaming center, but I don't think so. Still need to look into it, though. Just because I don't suspect something doesn't mean there isn't something there, Harriet says as she starts going over a list of all the different games in the arcade to try and find a pattern. You're really getting it, Lavender congratulates her, and Harriet smiles. The poor stupid little horse, she pities her. She burns through another hour just collecting and printing information on each of the machines. There are about 100, it's a small arcade after all, and her alarm goes off. Oh no, I'm sorry I have to go. I stayed as long as I could, but if I don't go, then... Go then! Half the power of these gatherings is secrecy, Lavender prompts her, and Harriet puts everything down, doesn't bother logging out of her research, and bolts out. She doesn't stop her more advanced pace until she's in her apartment. Then she starts running Axiom through her hair to shift its color to the deep brown. I'll have to get into contact with Lulu again. Little Miss Argon's in about a mile over her head, but I don't think the perceivers have it in them to kill in cold blood. A coffee and a bagel loaded with cream cheese later, and she feels almost human. She has about an hour before she has to leave, and she needs to take a load off. No one ever told her just how exhausting spy work would be. Of course, it's obvious now in retrospect, but making sure you act a certain way and never slip up is hard work. It's not Hollywood. If she makes a big enough mistake, then she's going to get shot, not screamed at by a director. So she clears her mind and spends a few minutes meditating to clear her head and relax herself. She banishes her discomfort and doubts into nothingness as she reminds herself what this is all for. The galaxy is writhing under chaos and self-serving stupidity. She will bring order and wisdom to counter it, but first she needs to see the wholeness of the situation. She quickly showers after the meditation and then purges her scents. A splash of perfume and she dresses herself. She prefers the sisterhood over the perceivers. She likes dressing up. And with how well-dressed everyone is, it feels much more like a childhood tea party with a touch of paperwork than actual spy work. A breezy dress in dark and light greens, a sun hat and small choker for style. A few jangly bracelets in silver and sandals. She adds a few dabs of makeup to her natural complexion, and hides both a laser pistol and a plasma pistol on a garter each. There, beautiful and deadly. A perfect little ego boost. She's recognized on sight and scent in the club and is passed a keycard. Heffy. Oh, it's been too long, she gushes, running forward to hug her bestie. Estella, I missed you. Heffy gushes right back as she returns the hug and kisses Harriet on the cheeks. You've done such wonderful work. We really need to find more time to be together outside of our work. Have you ever undergone the wine walk? I'm afraid not, though if you're mentioning it, then it already has a wonderful recommendation, Harriet says happily. Oh, it is. But I was also thinking of letting you have my sampler. There's quite a bit to go through, what with that new state being kicked up. We need to get some dirt on those men, Heffy remarks, and Harriet nods. Oh, thank you so much. And you're quite right. The sooner we know something about these. They call themselves the Undaunted now, don't they? She asks, and Heffy nods. Well, the sooner we get some proper dirt on them, the sooner we can have fun. After all, if they're being honest and it's a race with a lot of men, well, he might not be a proper tret, but they look close enough for me. Oh, you are a scandal, Estella. I agree, between the two of us, we should be able to lock down a wonderful man. Perhaps even that admiral of theirs. Something about the flecking of gray in his hair that makes him look oh so refined. Heffy gushes, and Harriet nearly breaks character. Maybe, but I believe I saw him dancing with the ambassador of Brule. I think it was Brule. It was a Gobe woman dressing like a tribal savage had been stuffed into a suit. Harriet considers as Heffy thinks. I think it was. He also brought in a whole band of utterly scrumptious-looking men with amazing music. That big one in the middle, I think I spotted him with a pair of meat-tack. What a piece of meat that one was. So big and strong-looking. And that voice. Oh my, that voice. Heffy lets her tongue flick past her lips in absent thought as the imaginations of what she wants Koa to do to her run wild. There's more than that. I just got a wonderful video clip from a world called Vusha 5, one of the Cobes announces. A distant cousin of mine's been sharing it among the family. It shows what looks like a tret taking out 2 serial killers one after another in a full-on axiom war. It's insane! Really? Well, put it on then. It may be one of these humans. Heffy exclaims, and quickly enough the file is uploaded into a nearby view screen. It starts with an absolutely psychotic Lopin introducing herself and showing all the horrible things she's done while mentioning that she's spotted a man for her next bit of fun and hoping she gets to him before her neighbor does. That bit of utter madness spewed out, and the hag of a wolf woman quickly finds a man that Harriet recognizes as one of the EFL. His name escapes her at the moment, but he's rocking what looks to be a red alligator leather coat. Then things go from somewhat surreal to straight out of a cartoon as blades of energy are thrown around. The earth itself is manipulated into a weapon, fire screams into the sky, and then everything shifts as he tosses her clothing and tells her to cover her shame. So is your cousin known for making movies like this? Is she working in a film production company? Harriet asks the little Kobe. Well, no, why, do you think it's fake? She asks, and Harriet taps her chin a few times in thought. I can't see the mistakes, but video editing technology is powerful enough to do this on the cheap. Combat-trained men is odd enough, but Axiom users like this that aren't attached to a race like the APUC, even then, presuming he's a tret born to the APUC, what's he doing there and why? Harriet asks, scuffing the trail with a series of honest questions if they had come from someone who couldn't just ask her own fellows all the details and receive a full report. Something she'll have to do after this. That's purest nonsense, Heffy declares when the EFL man literally stamps a continent back into place. It does get rather fantastical. The little Kobe notes after a little while and a zombie army starts shambling up to be matched by gigantic flying undead sea serpents that tear out of the ground like a scene right off a heavy metal album, before the skies themselves seem to grow furious and shatter the enormous bones. Okay, I think I've seen enough silliness. I'll get to work. But please, do tell me if he takes his pants off, because that's the point where things get interesting. Harriet teases as she heads over to the files to sort. Time for the easy spy work.